and because this will segue into what I was going to ask you next, which is this quote you say on page 32. He said, there are many so-called end times prophecy experts who promote an attitude of excitement over other people's misery. And I underlined that quote, circled it. I was like, we're going to hit that one because it has so much. There's so much impact in that statement. So you don't have to name names necessarily. Okay, you're free to, but you don't have to. But more of what are you talking about when you say, one, these end times prophecy experts, and two, excitement over people's misery? What do you mean by that specifically?
Yeah, we rejoice at war. We rejoice at destruction, devastation. We rejoice at earthquakes and famines, because these are signs of the end of the world, when we're supposed to weep with those who weep. By the way, the message of 1 Peter is all about suffering well, right? How to suffer well. Jesus was a lamb before her shears, as he was silent, so he did not, utter anything. And so any approach that fails to call us to discipleship and cross-bearing love is a danger to the church. Any approach that makes us the good and demonizes the other is a danger to the gospel message. It's falling into the trap of empire. And we justify, glorify, and revel in war because it's a sign of the end times. And we overlook the human death toll and say, this has got to stop. We're almost numb to what's happening in Ukraine because there aren't Americans dying. But there are 500,000 Ukrainians that are dead. Shipping them more weapons is just getting more of them dead. They're going to lose this war. They cannot outman Russia. What are you talking about? Stop this war. Oh, but we have to, stop. It's like, no, we can negotiate a diplomatic solution to that war long before it ever started. It didn't have to happen. But guess what? Our weapons manufacturers love this war. They love it. Right? We're reveling in this. 5 large, massive corporations have gotten trillions of dollars of DOD, Department of Defense money in the last 20 years to build weapons. They need wars for these weapons. And then we fall into the trap of empire, because that's what empire does. It makes war. Right. That's what the SEALs are about. War and famine and blood and bloodshed and death. That's exactly what's going on. And we fall in the trap of that. Oh, but it's necessary. Oh, but it's important. Whether Israel has a right to defend itself, or the people of Ukraine, they need to be a democracy. And here we are, not weeping with those who weep, not being the peacemakers that we're called. Blessed are the peacemakers. Not being the light of Christ, laying down our lives for our enemies, whether they're Russians or Israelis or Palestinians or whoever else it might be. Oh my goodness, we've lost sight of we have been deceived. The devil's doing a really good job. He's winning in some senses this war.
Do you think that's a direct outgrowth of 4 decades of eschatology, popular eschatology, or do you think there are other factors that are heavier than that?
I think it's a both. It's a both and. Yeah. But our eschatology has led the church to fall into the trap of empire. Yeah.
There's eschatology is the way I got interested in the what's going on in the Middle East and Israeli-Palestinian conflict and the role of the church in that. The way I got into that was through Revelation. I'd never had an interest in politics or geopolitics or anything like that, but I was interested in Revelation, and so much of Revelation it challenges the views that people have. Now, I think it challenges right and left. I think Revelation challenges right-wing theology. I think Revelation challenges woke identity politics. I think it challenges both equally.
Absolutely.
But reading it, you can't help but see things like how God views empire, how God views worldly greatness, how, the noble embodiment of the goddess Roma and Pax Romana and bringing civilization and peace to the world, all that stuff. When through the eyes of Revelation, no, that's a drunken prostitute riding a beast, devouring God's people. So it really pulls the veil.
Yeah.
And so I can't help but look at modern things now through the apocalyptic lens and see the things that people glory in, revel in, cheer for. And I understand why people outside the church do it. It makes sense from this world perspective.
Of course.
From the earth dwellers, that's how I translate the Revelation, those who dwell upon the earth.
I agree. Yeah.
From the earth dwellers' perspective, of course, empire makes sense and it's attractive and it's the only thing that you can put your hope in. But from heaven's perspective, it's a completely different narrative. Glory looks different. Honor looks different. Victory looks different. And the church, that's one of the reasons that we focus on Revelation at Disciple Dojo more than other New Testament books, is because it's been distorted more than other New Testament books. I don't see people twisting Colossians to the degree that I see people twisting Revelation. So
fair enough.
So that's kind of where my interest came. But it then formed how I looked at what's going on in the Middle East, for instance, and our knee-jerk reaction to always side with Israel, no matter what. Because that's what the Bible says. And just take a one-to-one image of biblical Israel, modern Israel, it's the same. What is there a question about? It seems super obvious. So if you touch on a little bit, and you can be as open or as guarded as you care to be, but how does your reading of Revelation, how does it shape how you look at not just Israel in terms of Palestine, but Israel as a modern entity in general? How does Rob Dalrymple approach even talking about these kind of subjects and how it dips into foreign policy and ethics and all that?
So I've written a lot about this on my blog at determinedtruth.com. I've written a lot about this. Of course, I wrote a book called These Brothers of Mine that dealt with the theological issues. I've got a new book coming out in another month or two, which is actually like a condensed, simplified version of These Brothers of Mine, called The Land of Contention, talking about the theological issues of land and family. I've done 30 live streams on Israel, Gaza on our YouTube channel at determinedtruth.com, and the war on Gaza, and another series on introducing Israel, Palestine. So Israel is a nation like all other nations for which we are to lay down our life for and love them and sacrificially witness to them so that they might indeed embrace the Lamb that was slain, just like the United States is, but just like Russia is, just like China is, and so also the Palestinians. And so I think this is an example of how we've allowed our eschatology to say, oh, this is about the end of the world and we're reveling in war because this is a sign of Armageddon. And it's like, no, that's exactly not what Armageddon's about. And we rejoice at, I wrote a couple of blogs October 8th after, the Hamas terror attack of October 7th. There were churches and pastors that came out. I can't think of the guy's name right now, the Harvest Christian Fellowship pastor that came out and preached on October 8th and said, we should be looking up because this is a sign of the imminent return of Jesus. And this congregation began applauding. Do you not realize that 1,200 Israelis were just killed the day before and that people were taken hostage into Gaza? And we all know what Israel's going to do as a response to this. And I wrote, like October 8th, Israel's going to respond tenfold. And unfortunately, I was wrong because it's been 30-fold. I mean, we're 40,000 dead, 10,000 are missing, presumed to be dead, 90,000 are injured. There's a polio outbreak. People are dying from hunger and starvation, which even if they survive the hunger and starvation, that's going to have long-term lasting effects upon their body. And the entire Gaza Strip's been decimated and it's unlivable. What are you going to do with the 1.9 million people that are survived? I mean, this is horrible. And I just wrote a post the other day that said, by the way, this is bad for Israel. There's no way the nations of the world are going to let Israel get away with this. Oh, and guess what? It's really bad for the United States as well. Because the International Criminal Court said this is genocide or on the path of genocide, and we're arming it. And I don't care if you're Biden. I don't care if you're Trump. I don't care if you're Kamala Harris. Guess what? You can stop this today. I heard Kamala Harris come out like months ago saying, we need a ceasefire. And I'm like, you're the second most powerful person in the world, and you can stop this, and you can bring a ceasefire. And then Biden said, oh, we need a ceasefire. Like, oh, you got it. And they sent them $20 billion in weapons the other day. And Kamala Harris, however you say her name, sorry, just came out the other day and say, I am refusing to condition support for Israel. How do you ever give weapons to any country? I don't care what country it is, without conditioning it. You have to condition it. Say, Ukraine, you're going to use this right. You're not going to do this against civilians. You're not going to do this against the school. You're not going to do this against a refugee camp. That's just human nature. So you can see I'm passionate about this, but this is, I don't care, and Trump is just as bad.
Yeah.
He moved the embassy to Jerusalem. I was at the State Department 2 weeks beforehand, speaking with a group of evangelical leaders to Trump's advisor on religious affairs. We went into the State Department and she said, so what are you here for? We're like, we want you to know that we are evangelical leaders and we don't think that moving the embassy to Jerusalem is going to help. It's only going to worsen the conflict. Yeah. And she said to us, that's a done deal. Anything else you want to talk about? We had a 45-minute meeting with her and that conversation was ended. So this is bad. And Jared Kushner wants to make the Gaza Strip, a place on the beachfront property. It's like,
for sure. Yeah.
So.
It's been, it's stunning to me how flippant so many of our fellow evangelicals are about things like ethnic cleansing, which, even saying that, some people are like, how did you? I'm like, no, that's dictionary definitions of the term, moving a people group from one place and then bringing another people group in to achieve ethnic homogeneity. That's ethnic cleansing. And that's exactly what's happening as a result of this entire mess that goes back a little bit longer, but it's not all the way back to Isaac and Ishmael and any of that stuff.
This
is a modern
a fairy tale. Yeah.
But that whether it's the Isaac Ishmael thing, whether it's the Israel, the apple of my eye, I'll bless those who bless you, I'll curse those who curse, all of this,
the chosen people,
biblical stuff gets imported and read into modern Israel. And it's in a ham-fisted way. It's in a way that ignores the entire book of Revelation, the entire message of the book, and not just Revelation, but the whole New Testament. But it's fascinating to me, sadly fascinating, how much eschatology has influenced foreign policy and politics. Because, you had Reagan reading Late Great Planet Earth, and having, even through the Bushes, having advisors in the John Hagee world as advisor. And today, that's a mainstream, Christian Zionism is a mainstream American political view. And it shows to me that the church is desperately in need of reclaiming the message of Revelation. And not in what I was glad to see you talk about the damage that the misreadings of Revelation can do. And the height of it to me is, and you remember this, I'm sure, when Ariel Sharon had a stroke. It was a stroke or a heart attack. I think it was.
I don't remember.
It was a stroke or heart. Ariel Sharon got something, and that Christians came out, well-known Christians came out publicly in their ministries and said, "This is what happened because he was trying to make a peace deal and give up land." In Jerusalem, and you will not divide Jerusalem, and God struck him. And I was like,
Pat Robertson, all those guys said that.
And even some who are not even known as firebrands, even some who are more respected would voice that. And I just thought, what insanity do we have where blessed are the peacemakers becomes cursed are the peacemakers because they're trying to make peace by giving up real estate. As if that's something that God has a real abiding passion in, ethnic preservation of real estate. It's such a mess. It's such a mess.
Think about what this means in terms of the witness. Go back to witness for just a quick second. The most of the world looks at America as this Christian nation. It's not, but they associate Christianity and the United States. And they see that we are supporting Israel without conditions.
Right.
And again, we love the Jewish people. We love them. This is not good for them either. But they're seeing that how we're sending weapons to Ukraine. They're seeing how we're waging wars around the world. And they're seeing the church supporting and endorsing this. And they're thinking, that's what Christianity is about. I don't want anything to do with this. And this is not just simply Revelation. This is Jesus. This is the entirety of the New Testament. Put down your sword. All who live by the sword will die by the sword. Matthew 26:52. This is the essence of the gospel story, that in my kingdom, the Gentiles lord it over those in authority, but not so with you. The first shall be last, the last shall be first. This is fundamentally undermining the gospel message and the commissioning of God's people and who we were supposed to be about. That's why I go back and say the devil's winning. He's doing a really good job. He's the deceiver.
That witness, I think of how it was portrayed in American media when Patriarch Cyril or Kirill, the Russian patriarch, was blessing the Russian troops. Right. And saying God is sending you into Ukraine, like literally blessing them as they were about to go. And I have friends who are working relief in Ukraine, and just the stuff they've seen that Russia's done is just horrendous, and it's just a mess. And seeing a priest say God is blessing this, blessing their guns, literally blessing their guns, and then you see American Christian politicians over in Israel signing the bombs.
I know
that are going to be dropped on children in Gaza.
Right.
And then coming back and speaking at the Christian, what's the big PAC, the super PAC, but coming back and addressing that crowd of values voters and Christian after having it's the same thing. It's the same thing as the Patriarch of Russia blessing those bombs. And I think it was Nikki Haley going over and signing bombs in Gaza. It's the same thing. And anybody outside the church looking at that, I think, has every right to go, that is abhorrent and I want no part of it.
Exactly.
Can you blame them?
And we look at Islam as though it's a religion of violence.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So I like that your commentary, it doesn't, and I don't want folks to get the wrong idea. Like, you don't touch on politics.
I don't.
We are having this discussion.
Yeah, exactly. Correct.
But your commentary, it gives the theological groundwork and the exegetical groundwork for what Revelation is doing. And then what we're discussing here are just some of the outworkings of that.
Exactly.
But there are many, many, many more in different parts of the world, different situations, because Revelation's message is timeless. It challenges our self-identity and our allegiance to the world in every age, in every era. It's a timeless message.